I think we are live now. Hello, everybody. Happy to have you today again with a live interview in the series of interviews for celebrating 50 years of MSF. Our guest today is Dr. Mego, the President of MSF France. Good afternoon, Dr. Mego.
Good afternoon.
Pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's start in a hurry asking you about how you start. How did you join MSF and why?
I was born in.
I'm sorry. I just remember to say a quick bio of yourself. So let me just introduce you to the viewers with us today. Dr. Mego has been the president of MSF France for many years. He's originally from MENA, as he was born in Lebanon and worked with MSF in many field positions, and he is himself Dr. Mego, born in Lebanon, as I said, he earned his medical degree in pediatrics from Yerevan State. Did I pronounce it right? Yerevan? Yes. Yerevan State Medical University in Armenia in 1999. While still in medical school, he worked as a translator for Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, in Nagorno-Karabakh. From 1999 to 2002. He worked as an MSF field doctor in Sierra Leone, Afghanistan, Iran, and Democratic Republic of Congo. In 2003, he became an emergency coordinator for MSF project in Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Niger, Pakistan, Central African Republic, Jordan, as well as other countries. From 2007 until being elected president, he served first as deputy and then as director of MSF's emergency programming at MSF in France. Pleasure to have you, Dr. Mego. Sorry for the but as I said, would like more to know how it started. Why did you first suggest or convinced to join MSF? Within the civil war, I think, in Lebanon, right?
Yes, when during the war in Lebanon, MSF has sent the surgical team. They used to work apparently in Zahle, especially mainly in the 70s, in the 80s. And they used to have Médecins Sans Frontières. They used to do public communication in Lebanon via the media in order to raise money. So it was my first discovery with this organization. Since I was watching, like all the other Lebanese, the short, let's say, videos or movies passing via the media talking about MSF. And it's funny, I was telling that one day if I became a medical person, I wanted to be first pharmacist, I remember. So I will try to join this organization probably one day. At the end of the war in Lebanon in '89, 1 year before the end of the war, so I decided to quit the country and to go to Armenia, since I'm Armenian origin, for few months. But for several reasons, I decided to remain in this country, to continue my medical school there. In '94, I was in the medical school, of course, still. I met by chance the head of the mission of Médecins Sans Frontières in the town. When we talked together, he was very surprised to meet someone speaking French in the country, since the country was not independent. It was in the ex-Soviet Union as a republic, but in Soviet Union. So they mainly the people there they used to speak Armenian or Russian, not foreign language. So when the MSF person met me, and he discovered that I speak fluent French and some English, he was very motivated, and he asked me if I can join them to do the translations of the medical guidelines that they were bringing from France to Nagorno-Karabakh. So I started with MSF like that. So during my holidays in the school, in the medical school, I used to go for a couple of weeks to Nagorno-Karabakh to translate the medical guidelines to the Armenian doctors, because most of them, or even no one, was talking a foreign language in order to continue to work with the new medicines coming from Western world, etc. So this was my first experience with MSF. Yeah, it was not. I was not impressed, honestly, by the organization in Nagorno-Karabakh on that time, because they were distributing massively its true medicines to the main hospitals and health centers in this small republic, but not dealing with patients directly, only helping the health ministry with drugs, and that's all. So I was a bit disappointed that we are not in direct link with the patients. But yeah, in '99, when I started to go as a doctor to missions abroad, my first mission was in Sierra Leone in '99. So I saw the evolution of MSF even 3 or 5 years after, on that time. So it was a very good experience. I remember my first mission in Sierra Leone.
And how? Sorry, the internet is well. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. I was wondering if having your first childhood and maybe the early youth in war sites, or as you said, just very near to the front lines, did this affected you while dealing with the same situation with others in different areas? I mean, did you have an understanding of how people feel in such a situation? Was this encouraging to be a field doctor in conflict areas?
Definitely, I was influenced by my country, Lebanon, since I am from the war generation. So I was witnessing, like many Lebanese, the people suffering from the war. My family, our neighbors, the rest Lebanese, and also I was observing charity organizations like the local Red Cross and Red Crescent. Very powerful. I remember on that time the two organizations, the Red Crescent Society and the Red Cross Society, very powerful, helping the vulnerable population. And they were the two main actors in the country during the war. So I was as well impressed and inspired by these two organizations when I was very young. I was impressed from their courage, their engagement, and availability to help the people. So definitely, When I started to work with my organization, clearly I was inspired from the war in Lebanon, what we were witnessing, and how we were observing some people trying to help the others, sometimes on volunteer basis. So clearly, my integration to this organization when I was medical student 94 and then as a doctor in 99 was related with my previous experience in Lebanon.
And how you managed to live organization in different situations and different development? How do you think the MSF developed during the past 50 years?
It has developed a lot. At the beginning in 71, when they decided, some French doctors and journalists decided to create this organization because they were affected by their own experience with other organizations in Biafra in Nigeria during the war. And also they were in a big emergency in Pakistan following floods in the country in the 70s, and the experience was not positive on that time. So they decided to create their own association in order to try to assist better the population in war. But when they created the organization in 71, their objective was to go to the countries where there is a crisis or important problem event to do the evaluation and then to make an appeal to the other organizations, mainly UN organizations, to come to help the people. This was in the beginning of MSF. Some years after, and specifically in 78, the new doctors that they have joined the organization, a younger generation, decided that they cannot continue to go just like that with small emergency box and pretend that we are helping the people. And they decided to change the organization towards professional organization. And from the 80s, the organization experienced a huge evolution comparing to 71 and Bernard Kouchner generation. So we decided in 78 specifically, and then early 80s, to be professional. We have created, for example, our own logistic base in order to improve the supply chain from Europe to the affected countries in very short period of time. This was in 83. We decided to create our own epidemiological center in charge to do studies of humanitarian situation, epidemiological situation in countries. We created that satellite. We created another satellite in early 90s, named Access Campaign, and this satellite started to struggle in order to facilitate the access of the medicine to the vulnerable population. For example, the HIV drugs in early end of 90s, majority of the patients, they were in African continent, and no one almost had access on that time to the HIV medicines. So MSF, with its newly created satellite in end of 90s, has struggled in order to convince the big pharmaceutical companies and governments, Western governments, to send these new medicines for HIV-affected people with affordable prices to them, and it was a big success. Also, in the medicine, in humanitarian medicine in general, MSF experienced a big evolution comparing to the 70s or 80s. The past years, we are capable to do, for example, very specialized surgery for mainly orthopedic surgery, plastic surgery, maxillofacial surgery in Jordan since June 2006. We have a very special, high-tech specialized hospital there in order to receive patients, victims of war coming from Iraq, then from Syria, Palestine, and Yemen. And this hospital is still functioning 15 years after with big success. Recently, we decided 2 years ago to start to treat cancer patients affected by cancer, especially female patients in African continent. Since the situation, it's very problematic concerning the cancer in some countries in the African continent. For example, for breast cancer, 85% of African women will not survive, unfortunately, because of lack of facilities, while 85% in France, for example, of female patients have the chance to survive. So we decided that it's not possible to continue like that, and it was a new evolution in my organization because this part of medicine have been developed since 3 years. And I think this organization will continue to do evolution in the coming years. When people ask me what is your vision, how MSF will be in 10, 20 years, I say to them, half serious, half a joke, that I'm not a prophet, I'm not a Nabi, so I don't have a vision. Only Nabi Muhammad has a vision, not me. But I presume that MSF will see an evolution towards a foundation to finance the others, the local organizations. Today, a lot of local organizations in the countries of intervention of MSF are doing a lot of job, a very good job, and by helping them with foundations financially will be probably in 10, 20 years time the most appropriate mechanism to help these local organizations, rather to continue to grow in European countries or with offices in the north, like we say. Today we have 64,000 employees in MSF, 8,000 of them under my supervision, MSF France. We have 25 associations in 25 different countries, and we are worried about our own situation, how we can continue to manage this growth. Finally, and we are doctors, majority in the leadership of MSF, and we cannot pretend that we can manage additional growth in the coming years. Only my section is has, for example, for 2020, we had 430 million euros of budget. Only my section, MSF France. So how doctors like me and others can pretend that we can manage more in the coming years? So we need to find other ways to help the population in need. Especially that in countries today like Indonesia, for example, there are very strong government structures to respond when there is a major emergency. They are capable to assist their population with very efficient way. The same in Philippines. The past experiences we have seen the local authorities capable to organize the humanitarian assistance when there is a big emergency or natural catastrophe, for example. In Congo, where there is still huge insecurity, etc., and the country is in difficulty, they were capable to manage the last Ebola epidemics, hemorrhagic fever epidemics in 2018, in 2019. They were the main actor, the local health ministry, for the response. So a lot of countries, the past 10, 15 years, are capable to organize the medical assistance. So I think in the future, instead the continuation of growth, we need to, in European countries especially, we need to find other way to help the local organizations.
So do you think the next phase of MSF is to invest more in developing countries or in local population qualifications so they can help? This would the next phase of MSF?
This is my personal vision. Others, they think that we are an emergency, unique organization, and people will continue to need our help. So we need to be stronger in terms of emergency response. But but my personal view and my board as well here in France, we are 15 members in our board. We don't think that this will be the continuation of MSF by growing and growing. We need to probably sooner or later help financially the local organizations in order to do the job, participate in the capacity building. We say of local facilities, even if it's not our culture. We, as I said, we pretend to be an emergency organization, and even some colleagues they don't like to use this terminology, capacity building. They say we are not specialists on that, but it's not true. We do, without being conscious, we do capacity building in many missions where we work, without being conscious. So, and we have a charter, and in our charter, it's not written exactly what we will do, what type of medicine we will do, and how we will help the people. It's our charter. We have no mandate. We have a charter, and the charter is not telling that, and we have the choice to decide how to help the population in many countries. We have the choice. So I think if we will rely better on the local organizations, we will definitely improve our assistance to them in the coming years. This is the weak point, by the way, of MSF. Yeah, we have no culture of collaboration with the others. We are a kind of sectarian organization. very closed, and not open to the others. So we struggled the past 5 years to change that culture, at least in MSF France. Partially we succeeded. We had good experiences in Syria, in Philippines as well recently. So why not to improve that type of collaboration with the locals?
So do you think setting partnerships with organizations in the future will be a target of MSF?
Yes, at least for our section, MSF in France, it will be a target. We are struggling against the isolation. I say every time I talk with my people, I say we are against the isolation of MSF. We need to struggle against that, and we need to stop to think that we are the best medical workers and the others not. So it's not true. We are at the end a small association of doctors. We try to do our best to help the people, but we cannot pretend that we are better than the other. The big explosion that happened, for example, in Beirut past year, 4th of August, the main actor who helped the wounded people and also the population in general, they were the Red Crescent Society and Red Cross Society, the local Red Cross and Red Crescent Society, and not Médecins Sans Frontières or the other organizations. We did very few comparing to them. So yes, the partnership with others, the opening to the others will be, for I'm convinced, the target of MSF in the coming years.
Do you think the style, the guides that you started by slating early in the late 70s would be kind of accumulating experience in the MSF that could be for capacity buildings for others in the same field of humanitarian help?
Yes, it's one of the tools, of course. It's one of the tools. We have today guidelines translated to many languages, not only to English or French or local language, many languages.
How many languages?
We almost we worked the past year. We worked in 88 countries, and we have translated for at least 80 countries with their own local languages. The guidelines that we have. We need to focus more on the training of other colleagues, not MSF colleagues. Our target was the past years to improve the quality of the training for our employees, especially the local employees. But as I said, we think only about us. So we organize very high quality training for our employees since 5 years at least. But we do very few for the local people, the non-MSFers people. So for the first time, we finally succeeded, for example, in Bangui, in Central African Republic, to organize the training of anesthetist nurses, not from our organization, from local health ministry. We have sent at least 50 nurses to have training to become anesthesia nurses to another African country, to Cameroon. And they will, and the first nurses finished their training the last year. So it was the beginning of openness and partnership with others. We have another partnership in Monrovia, in Liberia, with the local health ministry, where we facilitate the training of health ministry surgeons and medical personnel in general in our hospital in Monrovia. They do rotation of 6 months between them to come to be trained in the hospital. But as I said, it's very limited. We need to open better our partnership in terms of capacity building as well with the local actors. Yes.
Mm-hmm. How do you think? I think the field doctors are like one of the main bases of MSF. How do you think they evolved during the last 50 years? Do you think what do you think they need to deal with the future?
As all the medical humanitarian actors, the doctors and the medical workers in MSF as well are facing the security-related problems in different countries where we work. It has not changed comparing the situation in the 80s. We used to have problems with radical groups in Afghanistan in the 80s. So the evolution of these radical groups, it's not new. It has existed from the 80s, where we faced a lot of problems with radical groups in Afghanistan. Hundreds of employees, they have been kidnapped for days and days from one group on that time. So it's not new. But the growth of MSF, the number of staff which is growing, the number of doctors are growing in MSF and in other organizations in general, and we have the feeling that the number of incidents are growing as well related to the security. So maybe comparing to the number of staff in the 80s and the number of incidents, and today the proportion most probably are the same, because the number of staff are much higher today. But we have, it's true, a lot of security related problems, and unfortunately we were naive when we were thinking that we are doctors and we are protected, our profession is protecting us. We were naive to think that. It's not true. We are like any other person in danger in a lot of countries where we intervene. A lot of colleagues have been wounded or killed the past years in different countries. I have still 3 colleagues disappeared in Congo, in their own country, since 2013. So more than 7 years that we have no news from them. They were kidnapped by one radical group. So I think the evolution of the doctor or the humanitarian worker in general for the coming years, or the main dilemma for them will be, unfortunately, the security, and how all of us, we could also try to manage our own security where we are in the field. Mm-hmm. It's true that we did a lot of efforts to organize tools, policies in order to protect our doctors and the staff in general. We did a lot of improvement, but still it will be, I think, the main dilemma for any medical worker in conflict zone, especially the security.
I was wondering how the pandemic affected the humanitarian work. You are dealing with catastrophes, with conflict, very hot conflict areas. And then came the pandemic. How this affected MSF work in the different countries they are working on?
Yeah, like the others, we had the same problem, especially the past year, related to the departure of the staff from, for example, France to the affected countries. Yeah, the staff was the transportation of staff, so it was problematic. Still, it's problem for some countries. The supply was affected as well of medicine and medical materials to a lot of countries. Supply going from our logistical base, and in general, the local health ministries are facing the same problems as well. So clearly, today, paradoxically, the COVID is not the main problem in a lot of countries. There is other problems related to the health in many countries where we work. For example, the malaria cases, the deaths from malaria, especially in African continent, have been drastically increased the past year due to COVID, since the health ministries, including MSF, got a lot of difficulties to send the rapid test, for example, to diagnose the malaria from Western countries to the African continent, sometimes even the drugs. So we faced a lot of mortality problems related to malaria, especially in African continent the past year. I know that the other vaccination mechanism are affected as well, since everyone now is obsessed. All the countries are obsessed by the COVID vaccination, and they are and they are neglecting the rest. So today we can see epidemics of measles, for example, in many countries. We can see cholera outbreaks in many countries. Even there is poliomyelitis cases in some countries where for decades this disease was disappeared. So the consequences are unfortunately very bad on the general mechanism of health in many countries where we work, unfortunately.
Talking about the vaccination.
Yes.
Yeah. I was wondering how MSF is helping conflict areas to get the COVID vaccination. And I think MSF also has a good contribution related to the intellectual property of the vaccination around the world. So can you tell us how things are doing, how MSF is helping?
Yeah, we like the other humanitarian organizations have difficulties to get access to the vaccines. Even if we can pay for them, it's almost mission impossible as medical organization to get access to the vaccines. Unfortunately, it's the same problem for the rest of humanitarian organizations, with the exception of World Health Organization, the UN World Health Organization, that they have set a mechanism named COVAX. It's a program to organize the sharing of vaccines in the world, especially in the south, with the supply, even with the storage of vaccines, because it needs a specific cold chain for them, and even help the local health ministries to organize the vaccination. So what we do, that we try to, in the countries where we intervene, we try to advocate and negotiate strongly with the WHO, World Health Organization, in order to accelerate the reception of the vaccines. Even sometimes we participate in the vaccination campaigns, like we do now in Lebanon, for example. We are planning in Iraq. We are planning, I hope, in Yemen soon as well to use the vaccines coming from the UN, and with the collaboration of local health authorities in Yemen, organize a vaccination to the vulnerable class of population. It's in some countries we are capable to organize that, but in other countries like northern part of Syria, for example, it's mission impossible. So people, for example, in the camps in Idlib, the camps are overcrowded, and this population is vulnerable population for COVID. In one tent, there is sometimes a family of 10 persons. So for example, this population has no access to the vaccines for the moment, after almost 1.5 years of pandemic. So these people in Syria, for example, are in a difficult situation. In Yemen, the insecurity as well will cause us a lot of problems, especially in the north, where there is difficulty to access, even to send people. It's problematic to send drugs in general, not only the COVID vaccines. It's problematic. We put weeks and weeks to get the authorizations to send the supply to the northern part of Yemen, especially. So now with the COVID vaccines, it will be much problematic for northern part of Yemen. So, to shortly answer to you, in some countries we are capable to collaborate with the UN and the local health ministries and participate in the vaccination by targeting the priorities, the health workers, the elder people, or people that they have other pathologies and they are vulnerable. For example, people with hypertension or cardiac problems, they are considered priorities. So we target the population like they did in Europe at the beginning of the vaccination. They targeted as well the population. So now there is the problem of course, some people are telling the intellectual property is problematic, and if we cancel that, it will facilitate the vaccines arrival to southern countries, which is honestly, I don't think it's the only problem. It's a problem, but it was not the main problem. The problem is the capacity of production in a lot of countries. Are they ready, these foreign Western countries, ready to share their expertise, their materials with other countries in order to organize locally production of vaccines? This is the main problem, the production of the vaccines. We as an organization, we have our limited, of course, capacity, but we decided at Médecins Sans Frontières to work with the Dakar Senegalese government in Dakar, together with the Pasteur Institute. They have the local Pasteur Institute managed by the Senegalese government, and some other governments like Germany and France. Together we want to organize the production of COVID, especially vaccines. I hope in the coming months in Senegal. I think it will be our first experience in terms of production of vaccines in our history in MSF. We partially participated to create drugs or partially participated to create the vaccine for Ebola. But this time it will be our first time in our history where we have a big involvement to product the vaccine locally in Dakar.
Vaccines.
Yes, for COVID and other vaccines later on. And I hope we'll be able to have success. I know some countries are planning to product as well, in Egypt, Morocco, but they are very minority today talking about the co-production or the production in their own country, because it's the main problem. It's the main problem. The techniques, the expertise, the finance as well. Yeah, it's problematic. This is the main problem, the production.
But I think it's a big step for MSF to engage in producing vaccines, right?
Yes, we said it's MSF France who took this initiative. We said we should stop crying and insulting the governments that they are bad people and they don't help the poor. We need to try to do it by our own as well. Yeah, criticizing the Western governments, yes, we can continue, but in the same time, yeah, for example, United States, they had I don't know now the number of deaths in the country. The number of deaths from COVID in the United States, it's much higher than all the deaths that they got during the wars, from Vietnam War up to other wars. So they have much higher the number of deaths. So it's very difficult to explain to them that you need to maybe transfer your production capacity somewhere else.
But do you think that MSF could help in the future to be more engaged in building capacity in the vaccination production issue to other countries that might not have this capacity? As you said, the developing world have many countries that don't have the capacity to vaccination. But if you have this capacity, would you share it?
Yes, of course. Of course, we are ready. Our capacities are limited as well, but we said that we will do as much as we can in order to encourage the production out of Europe, the vaccines in general, and especially vaccines for COVID. We financially even decided to participate in Senegal, for example, not only by giving expertise, etc., but also financially. Of course, comparing to the big government like German government, our financial capacity, it's not the same. The contribution is not the same, but we decided financially as well to contribute. And I hope this experience in Dakar will inspire us to do similar experiences in other countries. We tried to collaborate with the Egyptian pharmaceutical company to create a new medicine for hepatitis C, because the one which is existing in Western countries is very expensive, and a lot of people cannot access to that price. So it was a good experience. I forgot the name of the company, but it was a good experience. We worked together in Cambodia and also in Malaysia, together with this Egyptian pharmaceutical company. And it was a good experience. I hope we will be able to multiple this kind of collaboration in terms of partnership in the future.
Yeah, great. I think we had a lot of for my questions, and I think we need now to give the opportunity to our viewers. I would like just to last my questions with a small message from you to the teams and patients of MSF. What do you think would be your message to them in such situation we are dealing with all over the world now?
Yes, we had a very difficult situation since more than 1 year now related to the pandemic. So I was very proud of my colleagues that they were continuing to work despite the big difficulties, especially the local colleagues. As you know, 80% of our employees are local people. 20% are foreigners going from France or Europe to the missions of where MSF works. Majority are local colleagues, and they were very courageous, especially in Afghanistan, Mali, and Yemen, to continue the job independently with big courage and engagement. And we were very proud from them. And I hope and I'm convinced that they will be able to continue the good quality to help the others in different countries where we work. As I said, in 88 countries that we work, majority of them are in conflict zones. 60% of them are in conflict zones. So I am very happy and proud of the colleagues that they work in very difficult situation, and also I hope that in the future we will improve our relationship with the patients as well out of the hospital. We are talking about including even representatives of patients in our board here in France from the field, inviting ex-patients, for example, to be co-opted in the board in order to hear the reality from the field, and not by sitting in Europe pretend that we understand everything. We want even to create a relationship with associations of patients in some local countries. And this is, I think, something that we hope to improve in the coming years, the partnership with the patients as well out of the hospital, not necessarily when he is sick. After the release from the hospital, how we could improve the relationship to understand better how we can improve our assistance to them. Sometimes, unfortunately, we decide how to do, what to do without asking their opinions. So we need to improve this partnership with patients as well in the coming years, I hope.
Great. Let's start with the viewers' questions. First question is, how you find the role of president? How is it challenging to be the president of MSF?
Of course, it's a big responsibility. I was the first president who was non-French, who was elected in France by our employees. I was elected for 3 mandates, 3 terms. This is my last term. I was the first non-French person coming from Lebanon who has been elected mainly by the French people as president of the organization. So it was a big and positive personal experience for me in terms of diversity and acceptation of people coming from abroad who speaks few French and English, but this we were capable to elect, as I said, a person, foreigner for them. I'm a foreigner in France for them, so So it was, but it has increased this fact, my feeling of responsibility. So of course it was, I was very grateful, but also I was challenged, and my feeling of responsibility has drastically increased uh, with this position, because when I was a doctor, it's my profession, so I was having no problem to work in different missions in MSF. When I was responsible for the emergencies, the same. I was not. I was experienced in emergencies, so I had no problem. But with this position, it was big challenge and responsibility. But I was supported by my board colleagues. I have 14 other board members in my board. Most of them are very experienced in humanitarian as humanitarian workers previously, or experienced in finance. Some of them, for example, key positions, treasurer, vice treasurer, they are not like us. We say they are not MSF. They didn't do missions like us. They are from town, but they integrated us, and they were very helpful in order to better manage the organization. I hope I was capable to manage well the organization. I hope, I guess so, if these people elected me 3 times. So I think they were confident as well that my board was capable to manage the organization properly.
What about the diversity? As an icon of diversity in the MSF, being the president from outside France, what do you think of the diversity in the MSF now? Is it work well?
Yeah, we are not a static organization. We evolve and we improve our medical quality, our human resources policies. I have seen that from all these years. I worked with MSF. I'm working with MSF more than 20 years now. I remember when I went to my first mission in Sierra Leone. All the foreigners, I was the only non-Western guy in the team. All of them, they were French, some few American or Italian, all of them French. I was with one Ethiopian guy. We were the 2 non-Western people in the team of 200 foreigners in Sierra Leone. Now it has changed. It's not the case. Today, we have more than 160 nationalities working with us. Half of our coordinators are mainly Africans or from Middle East, more than half now. So we have a lot of evolution, positive in terms of diversity in MSF. But I need to accept that we have still problems related to the diversity and inclusion. We have still problems, and we need to improve. As I said, we need to continue to identify the weak points and problems, and try to rectify or to improve or to even to delete the problem. We have a lot of improvement to do in terms of gender balance as well. Here in the headquarters, it's not problematic. Female are even majority in the management team and employees. 70% are female, but in the field, it's the opposite. We have problems of inclusion of female personnel in many missions where we work. Main problem, for example. Suddenly I discovered, I was happy that people like me now, they go coming from MENA or from Africa, they go to the missions and they are even in the leadership. And I was happy for myself. And the past months, I discovered the quota of female versus male coordinators that we have. Almost zero female coordinator in the field, almost zero. So it's problematic. So we need to improve the gender balance, of course, in the missions where we work in many countries. Yes.
Another question is, you have been working for MSF for more than 20 years now. What's your advice for young medical staff who want to work in the field for humanitarian cases?
We have, my advice to any medical person or even non-medical, we have a lot of non-medical people as well in my organization. Almost half of them are not medical. We have logistics, we have water sanitation specialists, we have finance managers, we have human resources managers, we have communication officers, public communication officers. So there is many profiles in MSF, not necessarily medical. 55% are medical. I advise, of course, as someone who's remained in the same medical humanitarian organization for 21 years, I will advise any young other colleagues to do the same. It's the best way to help the patients free of charge, without problem. While it was not the case when I used to work in my hospital in Armenia when I was young. So we were obliged to ask the financial contribution of the families for any patient we were receiving. It was a big headache, I remember, for me, sometimes to help the patient for financial reasons. At least we have that problem in our hospitals where we work. So I encourage my colleagues to do the same experience, even if it is for short period. Sometimes in MSF, people remain in the organization for years. For years, they do different positions, medical and non-medical, or manager position, like I'm doing since 9 years or 8 years now. So some people stay. So it's true that we are humble when we, in terms of salaries, for example, we have humble salaries, but it permits us to continue to stay in the organization and to help the people, and which is something noble and great.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
I think we had a problem. Yeah. One last question before ending this very interesting interview about the vaccination. And it's actually asking about the vaccines production of MSF. Which kind of vaccination are you going to produce? And did you work on the logistics of delivering it out the country of production for other countries struggling to find vaccination?
Yes, the vaccine that we want to product, it's for COVID. For the moment, we didn't find the name, but it's the vaccine, the industrial name, the commercial name, but it's for COVID. And I hope we can
it's not one of the famous ones now. It's not one adopted by the WHO.
Yeah, we will be inspired by the European one, of course. The government of Germany will be involved as well. So They are co-producers of Pfizer, for example, Germany with America. So, and they will be involved. So we will do, probably the name will be different, but it will be for sure the same as in many countries in the West. And in the future, we hope as well to product vaccine for malaria, because today there is no efficient still vaccine for malaria, despite the fact that many countries are working since years to product good quality vaccine. There is no efficient vaccine, and our objective as well is to develop efficient vaccine for malaria, especially that 90% of the cases are reported in African continent, and the mortality is still high with this disease, despite the good medicine and diagnostic test, etc. So it's one of the priority as well.
And did you work on the logistics of taking them out of the country of production to other countries with conflicts or something?
It will be the last step, of course. As soon as inshallah, the vaccine is ready, then we have our logistic base here in France is in the steering committee of this work. So they will, of course, facilitate the supply mechanism to other countries, not only for Senegal. So this is sure. We need to find a way to find as well purchasers in other countries if we want to survive the created vaccine. We need to find purchasers. We need to organize the supply chain, and I hope we will be able to do that. And the Senegalese government is willing to also to send to other countries, at least in the region, and not only keeping the vaccines for them. This is true.
I think we passed the time. It was a very interesting interview. Thank you very much, Dr. Mego. Do you have a last statement to end the interview with for the MSF in its 50th birthday?
As I said, I was very proud from the courage that MSF employees has expressed during this last pandemic. We are very as well proud from the courage of our staff in many countries where we work, in difficult countries like Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, Iraq. So I continue my respects to their work, and I hope that in the near future I will be able to go back to the missions. My term is ending next year in June 2022, and my objective is to go back to the field and try to help the people with my colleagues as a doctor this time.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Mego.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
مع السلامة. مع السلامة.